And earlier, I spoke with a member of the Israeli parliament, Professor Alon Tal, of Defense Minister Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party, over his response to President Zelensky's remarks and Israel's policy towards Ukraine on aid, refugees, and mediating between it and Russia. Knesset member Alon Tal, thank you for joining us. A lot of discussion, even debate today about President Zelensky's remarks, even his references to the Holocaust that have almost overshadowed the main message he was trying to convey. I just want to get, first of all, your reaction.
Well, I agree with your assessment, actually. I wouldn't think that President Zelensky's characterization of the Holocaust was precise as far as I understand Ukrainian history, but that's not the point. The point is we had in front of us in the Knesset an intrepid, really remarkable national leader, one of our own tribe, and he called out to us for help. I personally found his presentation quite compelling, and it certainly motivated me as an elected official, as a lawmaker, to try to do more to assist the beleaguered Ukrainian people.
Well, I just have to press you on that. You say not precise in terms of Ukrainian history. Some real objections being made over his references to, for example, Ukrainians saving Jews during the Holocaust, though some did. Obviously, did you not find that problematic in the specific comparisons with the Holocaust?
I find that nitpicking. It is true that we had a horrible event that befell the Jewish people about 80 years ago. That's correct. But today, right now, the Ukrainian people are facing a humanitarian crisis. They're facing an invasion which violates all kinds of international law. And I think that we need to recognize that as the Jewish state, with a particular sensitivity to countries that are put into refugee status and which some suffer from persecution, we need to do better.
Well, let's talk about doing better. He got into specifics. Should, for example, Israel provide weapons, even the Iron Dome system, to Ukraine?
Well, I don't think that the Iron Dome system will be a game changer when you consider the extent of American military aid coming there right now. What could be a game changer is the ability of Prime Minister Bennett to serve as some sort of a mediator between Vladimir Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. And so I think what we need to do is find out what is our unique contribution. Israel's a small country, and unlike other countries in the West who certainly identify with Ukraine, we have responsibilities and circumstances which are different. We have 100 to 300,000 Russian Jews whose safety is our responsibility.
President Zelensky also implied that Israel should be taking in more non-Jewish Ukrainian refugees. He talked about visas. This has been a matter of debate in your government. Where do you stand on that?
Well, my stand is that President Zelensky's remarks would have been absolutely appropriate a week or two ago. But the government heard the public hue and cry, realized that the humanitarian crisis was far greater than they initially imagined, and they changed their policy. There's been a lot of criticism directed at Minister of Interior Ayelet Shaked, and indeed, I think her initial position may have been a little bit obtuse. But we have to realize that good leaders are not unable to say at some point, you know what, I get it. Let's change this. And that's exactly what happened. Today, Israel accepts pretty much anybody that comes in. If you want the numbers from last week, I haven't been updated this week so far, but there were 6,500 Ukrainians who came here who were not entitled to come to Israel under the law of return. Only 4% of them were sent back. And these are people who were just flagrant in their disregard for Israeli norms and laws. But 96% came in. These were non-Jewish Ukrainian citizens that we took in just like anybody else.
All right. I want to talk about an event you tried to have last evening, a Zoom call with diaspora Jews titled, "How Can Israel Represent Jews Better in the World?" Before we get to what happened, though, I want to ask you, how do you think Israel is appearing as the Jewish state in its relation to what is happening in Ukraine? A lot of questions raised about how Israel is relating to that, the refugee issue, Prime Minister Bennett's role. How do you think Israel is coming out in this current situation?
Well, I think it's unfortunate that the good things that Israel is doing every day, from its field hospitals to its absorption of refugees, hasn't been getting the kind of press we have. But you can assume that before Prime Minister Bennett got on an airplane on Shabbat to travel to see Vladimir Putin, he coordinated his activities precisely with President Biden. In other words, I think that we are part of the team. And you know, when you have a team, people have different roles. And I think that certainly I heard the foreign minister come to the Israeli foreign minister and thank him for being a mediator. And when the ambassador to Ukraine, who's never spared his criticism of this and indeed almost joined a Supreme Court action against the government of Israel, when he sat with Ayelet Shaked a few days ago, he brought her flowers. And that's because things have changed.
Now, I want to ask you what happened on that call yesterday. You tried to have a Zoom call with the diaspora Jews abroad, and unfortunately, it seems there was attacks, if you call them hacking or Zoom bombing, they call it, of anti-Semites writing things like Hitler was right. What's your reaction, besides the fact that maybe you have to be a little more careful arranging that calls, that this is the environment for Jews in Israel and the world today?
Well, I was indeed taken aback. I think people should understand that when I went into the Knesset as the only American born and raised member, I felt like in the absence of geographical representation in Israel, I get to pick my constituents. So I felt that progressive Jews across the United States, my tribe that I grew up with, I feel like they're my constituents. And so I have, on a regular basis, reached out to have what I call town hall meetings. I focus on issues that matter to me, which include the environment or religious pluralism. And last night was just one in a series. I guess the precautions which my political party suggested that I take about pre-registration were well-founded, because I might have been a little bit complacent. I had no idea that I'd never seen such a thing, and we were all completely befuddled, but very quickly became very vulgar, and we decided to delay the continuation of it. In other words, we canceled immediately, but said we'll be back a week from now, and anybody who cares about this, who is watching this, they should try to register, and we will be with much stronger security.